Hello everybody and welcome to Wrestlelamia. You know what, when we look at certain wrestlers, most of us will always remember them at their peak of their career. Most of us know that being in the wrestling business can take a huge toll on your health, not only in the ring but outside, as many have enjoyed the rock and roll lifestyle. This might not be only recreational but body enhancing drugs that have taken negative effects over the years. In some cases, drugs and alcohol aren't the only thing that has affected him. Some wrestlers clearly haven't been visiting the gym in years and look totally out of shape. In this video we're going to be looking at 8 of the worst and a few honourable mentions. A warning to the wise though, some of these wrestlers look absolutely terrible and may shatter some good memories. And let's get one thing straight, I still admire most of these wrestlers on this list, and some have very serious drug problems. This video is not directed to poke fun at them, but a brief reminder on how the wrestling business can be sometimes very hard and can take a huge chunk off your life. So let's get straight into it with number 8, Scotty Riggs. He was one half of the tag team American Males in WCW. Both he and his tag team partner Buff Bagwell were seen as pretty boys who boasted of their bodies being in tremendous shape. The team didn't last long however, and Riggs didn't mirror the same success as Bagwell had in the late era of WCW. Riggs instead joined ECW for a short period and thereafter joined indie-fed TCW before retiring in 2009. Nowadays Scotty is far from being one of those pretty boys and doesn't resemble much from his former days. In 2014 he did a shoot with RF Video. Since at the time he wasn't even 50 years of age, he looked terrible with shaggy black and grey beard and appeared to have no teeth at all. Scotty though is still very much humble and grateful for his WCW success. So good luck to him. Number 7. Raven. Scott Levy, otherwise known as Raven, has always had a grungy look to him. Even when he played Johnny Polo, a spoilt rich kid, there was always something scruffy about his appearance. His biggest success story came from playing the character of Raven, a depressed sociopath who had some killer promos. Unlike Scotty Riggs, his body didn't play an influential part in his character. But now gone are those long curly locks and slim face. Recently hitting 50, Raven looks a lot worse for wear, especially when you look at few other wrestlers in the same age bracket like JBL and Booker T, who still look decent for their age. Number 6. Marty Jannetty. It's really sad that Marty Jannetty never rose to the same great heights as his former tag team partner Shawn Michaels. Most of course say it was due to his unprofessionalism, but in my mind he was always a better performer during the heyday of the Rockers. Sadly, Marty's demise in the wrestling world didn't stop there, and it was evident over the recent years his drug problem had peaked. In a shoot interview breaking kayfabe, Marty seemed distant and not quite with it. He also showed his ankles which were in terrible shape as they bent at an angle. He looked disheveled and was clearly struggling. Luckily though, Marty has since bounced back and is looking a lot better nowadays. He is currently under contract with Chikara Wrestling. Number 5. Dan Spivey. Spivey was not very well known in the WWE, even though he had been there on 2 occasions. On the first occasion he entered as one half of the American Express in 1985 with Mike Rotunda, otherwise known as IRS. He then returned in 1995 as a short-lived character, Waylon Mercy, a sort of precursor to Bray Wyatt. In fact, Spivey was more popular in the NWA, teaming up with Big Ginger the Undertaker as the Skyscrapers. He was never seen as out of shape, but in recent years it seems that his health has started to deteriorate. In 2007 he was arrested for driving under the influence of alcohol, and this mugshot was taken. Since this was only 10 years after his Waylon Mercy gimmick, you could tell that he's aged drastically, with his long black hair vanished and poor skin. Number 4. Scott Hall. The bad guy, Razor Ramon, has experienced some great heights in his wrestling career. From being a former Intercontinental Champion to being one of the founding members of wrestling's greatest faction, the NWO. Anybody who has seen the ESPN documentary on Scott Hall will know he has also had some lows. Hall revealed in the documentary that he killed a man in self-defense in 1983 and was consequently suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, which in turn led to his drug and alcohol problem. With a brief hiatus from wrestling in 2002, Hall returned to wrestling for TNA in 2004, but it was evident that Hall was looking worse for wear. He was overweight and aged rapidly during this time. The peak of his health problems came in 2013 where he finally sought help from fellow friend DDP. His progression has been much more positive over the recent months and seems to look a lot healthier. Let's hope it continues. The former WCW World Heavyweight Champion has always been a beefy muscular wrestler and even dubbed the Total Package. He was even signed to appear in the short-lived WBF in 1992 but had been injured in a motorcycling accident. It seemed though that Luger was becoming bigger and bigger and becoming more defined throughout his years. But it was revealed in 2003 that Luger had been using a number of steroids to gain and maintain that physique. In 2007, however, during a flight to San Francisco, Luger complained of having a very stiff neck and tried to click it back into place to ease the pain. Unfortunately, the click made it worse and Luger was admitted into intensive care where he woke up paralyzed from the neck down. He was diagnosed with spinal injury. The injury was not actually due to the substance abuse, it was down to his years of football and wrestling. Sadly, now Luger looks to have lost all his muscle mass and had for a temporary time been confined to a wheelchair. He has however used the injury in a positive light, and even though his mobility has been restricted, he still gives talks on substance abuses and has taken a role to help others in similar situations. Number 2. The Dynamite Kid. Dynamite Kid has been referred to by many as pound for pound one of the best professional wrestlers ever. But many people like Bruce Hart and Jacques Rougeau have said in shoot interviews that Dynamite Kid was not a very nice person inside or outside the ring. Many had actually commented on him being a bully because of his short stature and wanted to become bigger. He therefore had a huge history of substance abuses including steroids and also speed. Consequently, his substance abuse had caused him to age drastically and subsequently he had difficulty in walking. He is now confined permanently to a wheelchair. Not only this, but he now suffers from various heart problems and recently suffered a stroke in 2015. At just age 57, Dynamite looks like an old man. Whether you have sympathy for him or not, he was still a hell of a wrestler. Now for some honourable mentions. Number 1 being Jake the Snake. Of course it's very obvious that he would have been on the list, that's why he's an honourable mention. Jake's battle with drugs and alcohol was no secret in the wrestling world. It destroyed his career, marriage and relationship with his children. His health problems had peaked in 2013 when DDP actually intervened to help him. Many months had been spent to keep Jake away from both drugs and alcohol, and his progress was shown on both YouTube and in Jake's documentary The Resurrection of Jake the Snake. He has however since turned his health around and inducted into the Hall of Fame, and even though he looks like Barry from Chucklevision, he seems to have gone back to his former glory. The other honourable mention would be going to Sonny. Sonny is another person who has turned her life around and seems to have gone back to her former glory. She was in my opinion the hottest WWE diva ever. She even denied an offer from Playboy, a decision that she would later regret, and was known to be the diva of the new generation. Things however slumped for her as after the death of her husband Chris Candido, she started to pile on the pounds, and she also had a history of drug abuse. After hitting her lowest in a few stints in softcore porn, Sonny bounced back, literally, and was inducted into the Hall of Fame where she looked back to her previous self. She has though since sold her Hall of Fame ring and is also doing a number of Skype sex sessions. I know this because I researched this. Number 1. Amir Johnson. Amir Johnson was one of those hit and miss wrestlers that came out of the new generation. He was massive, muscular, but also agile at times. The only problem was, his promos were absolutely terrible. He used to speak like he had a mouthful of marbles. He rose to fame by being the second man to body slam Yokozuna in his first match. He then went to join the Nation of Domination and had a short stint in WCW as Big T. And oh, Big T he was. At this point, Ahmed looked a lot fuller and was actually released eventually due to ongoing weight issues. He retired eventually from wrestling in 2002 and got a degree in criminology. Unfortunately, now he looks like Abdullah the Butcher's twin and has piled on the pounds even more. He looks totally unrecognizable. Well guys, that about wraps up this video here. If you guys could check out my other videos, that'd be great, and I'll see you next time for some more wrestling content.